Ethan Baum sat in the employee break room of one of his restaurant locations, feeling the unfamiliar weight of a name tag that read Ben. The air smelled of grilled burgers and freshly brewed coffee, a scent he knew well but had never experienced from this side of the counter. Dressed in a basic uniform, his signature-tailored suits and expensive watch were gone, replaced with an apron and a pair of slightly worn sneakers. This wasn't just an experiment, it was a mission. For years, Ethan had built Baum's Grill into a national success, yet lately, he felt disconnected from the very people who made his company thrive. Profits were soaring, but employee turnover was high, and customer service ratings had dipped. Something wasn't adding up. If he wanted to fix the problem, he needed to understand it firsthand. That's why he was here, undercover, posing as a new hire in his own business. His trainer for the week was Jake Turner, a young man in his early 20s with tired eyes and an easygoing smile. At first glance, Jake seemed like any other hard-working employee, but there was something different about him. The way he forced a laugh when his co-workers joked around, the way his phone buzzed constantly in his pocket, how he absent-mindedly rubbed his temples during short breaks. It all pointed to someone carrying a burden far heavier than just waiting tables. "All right, Ben," Jake said, handing Ethan a notepad. "Taking orders isn't just about writing down what people say. You have to pay attention. Read the customer. Some are impatient. Some want to chat. Some don't know what they want. And some already hate you before you open your mouth." Ethan smirked. "Sounds fun." Jake chuckled. "You get used to it." For the next few hours, Ethan followed Jake's lead, jotting down orders, clearing tables, and learning just how exhausting the job could be. But what fascinated him most wasn't the work. It was Jake himself. No matter how chaotic things got, Jake never snapped. He never lost his patience, even when a customer yelled at him over a missing side of fries. He even covered for a struggling co-worker, taking on extra tables without complaint. But something was off. During their short break, Ethan finally asked, "You seem like you've got a lot on your mind. Everything okay?" Jake hesitated, his fingers gripping his phone. He let out a slow breath before saying, "My dad's in the hospital in a coma." Ethan froze. He had expected a generic answer: school stress, relationship drama, money troubles. But this? "I'm sorry," Ethan said, meaning every word. Jake nodded, staring at the floor. "Yeah, it's been rough. It happened 2 months ago. He collapsed at work, and they don't know if he'll wake up." Ethan swallowed. This kid was dealing with something unimaginable. "That must be hard." Jake shrugged, forcing a smile. "It is, but life doesn't stop. The bills sure don't." He let out a small laugh, but there was no humor in it. "I just do what I can. Work, send money to the hospital, and hope for the best." Ethan didn't know what to say. This wasn't just an employee going through a rough patch. This was a young man shouldering an impossible weight alone. That night, as Ethan took off his apron and left the restaurant, he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't just here to observe anymore. He had to help Jake. Ethan Baum had spent years making tough business decisions, but none had ever weighed on him the way Jake Turner's situation did. As he worked alongside Jake, watching him move with quiet determination despite the exhaustion etched into his face, Ethan knew he couldn't just walk away. Over the next few days, he paid closer attention. Jake never took a full break, always squeezing in a phone call to the hospital or responding to texts that seemed to drain the little energy he had left. He barely ate, surviving on coffee and the occasional leftover fries from a canceled order. And then there were the extra shifts. He volunteered for them constantly, taking on any available hours without hesitation. Ethan's curiosity turned into concern. So, on his final day undercover, he pulled the store manager, Corrine, aside when Jake wasn't around. "Hey, I had a question about Jake," Ethan said, keeping his voice casual. "He seems like a hard worker. What's his situation?" Corrine sighed, glancing toward the kitchen where Jake was rushing between tables. "Jake's been through a lot. His dad had a stroke a couple of months ago, and he's been in a coma ever since. Jake's been trying to keep up with the hospital bills, but from what I hear, it's bad. Ethan's jaw tightened. He had suspected things were difficult, but he hadn't realized just how much weight Jake was carrying. I also know he had to drop out of college, Kareen added quietly. He was studying business management, but once his dad got sick, he couldn't afford tuition anymore. Ethan stared at her, stunned. Not only was Jake struggling to keep his father alive, but he had also put his own future on hold to do it. That settled it. Ethan couldn't keep pretending to be Ben any longer. A few hours later, just before the dinner rush, he found Jake in the stockroom, restocking supplies. "Hey, got a second?" Ethan asked. Jake wiped his hands on a rag and nodded. "Yeah, what's up?" Ethan took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something." He reached up and removed his glasses, an unnecessary disguise but one that had helped him blend in. "My name's not Ben. I'm Ethan Baum." Jake blinked. "Wait, Ethan Baum? As in?" His eyes widened and he took a step back. "No way. You own Baum's Grill." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, I went undercover to see what my employees go through. And honestly, I wasn't expecting to meet someone like you." Jake let out a small, disbelieving laugh, shaking his head. "This is crazy." "I know it's a lot to take in," Ethan admitted, "but I want you to understand something. I see you, Jake. I see how hard you work. I see how much you sacrifice. And I know about your dad." Jake's face tensed, his shoulders stiffening. "I don't want pity. This isn't about pity," Ethan said firmly. "It's about what's right." Jake exhaled sharply, looking away. I didn't want anyone to treat me differently." Ethan stepped closer, "And they shouldn't. But that doesn't mean you should have to struggle alone." Jake crossed his arms, still processing everything. "So, what now?" Ethan smiled. "Now I help you." And with that, everything changed. Jake arrived at work the next morning feeling an odd mixture of nerves and exhaustion. After the shocking revelation that his co-worker Ben was actually Ethan Baum, the CEO of Baum's Grill, Jake had barely slept. He couldn't wrap his head around it. Why would a billionaire care about someone like him? And what did Ethan mean when he said he wanted to help? As Jake tied his apron, he noticed something strange. His co-workers were acting different. There were more smiles and more glances in his direction, and even Kareen, the store manager, gave him an encouraging nod. Something was up. Before he could question it, Kareen called his name. "Jake, you're needed in the office." Jake hesitated. The office? That was usually reserved for disciplinary meetings or scheduling issues. Did he do something wrong? With a deep breath, he walked inside. Ethan was waiting for him. But this time, he wasn't wearing an apron or carrying a notepad. He was in a tailored suit, looking every bit the CEO he truly was. Jake swallowed hard. "What's going on?" Ethan motioned for him to sit. "I meant what I said yesterday. I see how hard you work. I see what you've sacrificed for your dad. And I know you've been struggling to keep up with the medical bills." Jake shifted uncomfortably. He had spent months trying to hide his problems, not wanting to be a charity case. "Look, I appreciate the concern, but I don't want handouts." Ethan smiled. "This isn't a handout. It's an investment." He slid an envelope across the desk. Jake hesitated before picking it up. When he opened it, his breath caught in his throat. It was a check for $50,000. His hands trembled. This can't be real." Ethan leaned forward. "It's real. I want you to use it for your dad's medical expenses. No one should have to go through what you've been dealing with alone." Jake felt his chest tighten. He hadn't let himself cry in a long time, but right now, it was almost impossible to hold back. I don't even know what to say." "There's more," Ethan continued. "I looked into your background. You were studying business before you had to drop out. I know you had to put your dreams on hold, but I don't want you to give up on them." Jake stared at him in disbelief. "What are you saying?" "I'm offering you a promotion," Ethan said. I want you in management. You've got the work ethic, the leadership, and the heart. You've proven that 100 times over. Jake ran a hand through his hair, still trying to process everything. I never expected this. Ethan smiled. That's why it means something. You didn't ask for help, but you deserve it. Just promise me one thing. When you're in a position to change someone else's life, pay it forward. Jake swallowed hard, nodding. I will. I swear I will. As he walked out of the office, clutching the envelope in his hands, he felt something he hadn't in a long time. Hope. For the first time in months, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. Maybe things were finally turning around. And maybe, just maybe, there were still good people in the world willing to make a difference. With a renewed sense of hope and opportunity, Jake stepped into his future, no longer just a struggling employee, but a man given the chance to rise, determined to pay kindness forward. If you enjoyed the story, please do not forget to hit on the like button and also subscribe to our channel for more stories like this one. Bye.